All right, we're still talking about slope-intercept form. This is part 2 of the videos. Let me indicate that. This is part 2. If you know the slope, it's fairly doggone easy to plug it into the y equals equation. And you know we always start off with the y equals equation. Y equals mx plus b. Okay? So if you're trying to figure out what to do first, your steps. First, find the slope. If you watched and understand the slope, I think it was video part 3, you could look at the graph and find the slope, as long as you nominate 2 points. Here's a point, and it's not perfect, but let's say it hit here too. You know my drawings ain't perfect. So identify those points. Look like this one's on the x is at -3. And since it's on the line, it's a 0. And as you can see, that's also the x-intercept. It's where the line crossed the x-axis. Here is the y-intercept, and it looked like it's at 0, 1. So we just identified the intercepts. And if you identify the intercepts, it makes finding slope a lot easier. Well, we know that slope has to be a fraction. We know the top number describes the changes in the y's, which is this axis. So I first decide, how do I get from this point to this point? Do I need to go up or down? And if I do go up or down, how many spaces? Well, when I look from here to here, it looks like I need to go down 1. If I go down 1, now I'm aligned with that point on the horizontal axis. So I only went down 1, so -1 is my rise. Now I need to run. And you know we run from left to right. Well, to get to this point, from here to here, I need to run 1, 2, 3 times. And going left signifies a negative as well. It makes sense. It makes sense. So we found the slope. It's -1/3. Well, what's the y-intercept, Mr. Gray? What's the b going to be? Well, you know what the b is going to be. Look at your y-intercept. It's at 0, 1. We know we can't put a 0 right here, but we can put the 1. Because we know that when we're talking about the y-intercept, we look at the y-axis. And when we're talking about the y-intercept, the x value is always going to be 0. So that's how we use the slope in a graph to find an equation and put it in there. So step 2 would be to look for the y-intercept. And step 3 is substitute the values into y equals mx plus b. Okay? Let's talk about D. I'm going to use that same graph. No, I changed my mind. Changed my mind. Changed my mind. I'm going to make a table. I'm going to make a table. We're going to talk about point slope form. Point slope form is what you can use as well to put equations in slope intercept form. To graph them, you need them in slope intercept form. But you can use point slope form to get to slope intercept form. So I want you to make these connections, okay? You need a point and you need to know the slope to put it in point slope form. So if I give you a table, because you won't always see it in a list of ordered pairs, you won't always see it in a graph where you got to pull 2 points off. Sometimes it'll come in the table. Okay, and I'm going to use real small numbers. It makes life a whole lot easier. Okay, I don't know what my y's are. Okay, all I need to do, well, I can put my y's in there. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I can put my y's in there. Well, first, find the slope. Find the slope by picking any 2 points from this table. I'm going to go for some small ones. Let me go for 0, 7, and 1, 8. Those are my 2 points. 0, 7, and 1, 8. You know the equation. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So M equals, if this is point 1, we'll call this x1, y1, x2, y2. y2 minus y1 means 8 minus 7. And then x2 minus x1 means 1 minus 0. So M equals 1 over 1. So the slope is 1. Okay? 2, insert the slope into the point slope form equation. As you can see, I abbreviated point slope form. So I'm going to take this 1 over 1 and stick it here. Okay? That's my M. I know my X won't change, or my Y, because those come from my ordered pairs. Now I need to know what's Y1 and X1. Well, you've already identified that right here. Just plug these values in for those. Just plug those values in for those subscripts and do the math. So identify X1, Y1. And then substitute into the point slope form equation, and then solve until it's in slope intercept form. And I'm going to show you how to take this and put it in slope intercept form. So I'm going to move this over here, where we have just a little more room. Y minus Y1 equals M X minus X1. We know the Y and the X comes down. We've already identified our slope is 1 over 1. Keep the parentheses. Y1 is 7. X1 is 0. Bring our equal sign down. Use the distributive property. 1 over 1, or just 1, times X is just an X. 1 times 0 is just a 0. And then Y minus 7 comes down. I need Y by itself, so I'm going to box it. I need it over here by itself, so I need to move the 7. If I subtract the 7, or add the 7, using the inverse, they cancel out. The Y comes down and it's on the left side by itself like you want it to be. And you're left with X, and 0 plus 7 is just a positive 7. Is it in Y equals MX plus B form? Yes. And you probably say, I don't know, Mr. Gray, I don't see the value for M. Well, we've already learned when you don't see a coefficient in front of a variable, what's implied to be there? 1, or 1 over 1. And that concludes the lesson. Copy these notes down before you hit stop.